Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
Let's continue our Packers potential prospect series, where we take a look at some potential options that the Packers may draft in the first round or early day two. And this goes back to our 715 Fan Speaks poll question that we posted off yesterday. And 52% of you who voted saying that the biggest need for the Packers this year, or for this draft, that they have to address is defensive line edge rushers. So with that being said, we're going to take a look at three of them. We're going to take a look at three defensive linemen / edge rushers in this draft. All right, so let's... I had to get a little bit of water before I start to break this down. Let's take a look at Shemar Stewart. Now, you've probably heard this guy's name quite a bit throughout the whole combine and the draft process because this guy lit it up at the combine. 4.59 40-yard dash, and this is a guy who's like 6'5", 6'6", about 270 pounds, and he ran a 4.59 40-yard dash. Athleticism score ranked 4th. He ranked 7th in total score, but production score was about 25. So he tested fantastic. He is a supreme athlete, but kind of the knock on him has been production. You look at his career production, and it's got people like, okay, he's this gifted athlete, this talented athlete. He's got these physical traits, but where's the production? Because in 2024, he started all 12 games. He had 31 tackles, 5.5 tackles for loss, but just 1.5 sacks. 2023, played in all 13 games, 1.5 sacks. 2022, played in all 12 games, 1.5 sacks. So, I mean, you're looking at a 3-year career in the NFL, 1.5 sacks, 1.5 sacks, 1.5 sacks. Where's the production to match the physical traits? When we look at what Daniel Jeremiah... And Daniel Jeremiah is doing a conference call that I'm actually going to be on later today, answering media questions. But Daniel Jeremiah has this to say about Shemar Stewart. He does have him ranked as a 27th prospect in this draft. Stewart is a long, dynamic, and athletic edge rusher. He generates a lot of pressure, but struggles to finish in the passing game. That's why his low sack total, 4.5 in 3 seasons, is misleading. He still impacts the game even without major sack production. He has a very explosive first step and uses his long arm move to run offensive tackles back to the passer. He bends well at the top of his rush for such a big edge defender. He has an outstanding closing burst once he clears the tackle. He does need to add more moves to his arsenal, but I guarantee defensive line coaches are going to be lining up to work with him. Against the run, he can easily set the edge, and he has the speed to chase and make plays on the backside. I'm sure some will struggle to see past the limited sack total, but there is just too much talent here to fall into that trap. So you got a guy, again, like we were saying, he's got talent, he's got these physical traits, he's an athletic freak. But does the production worry you? It goes back to this debate. I don't know if debate's the right word, or this talk that I feel like pops up every football season. And you've heard the last few years a lot of defensive coordinators or position coaches talk about this, like sacks are a misleading number or not the tell-all when it comes to pass rushers. It's pressure rates, it's hurries, it's quarterback hits, it's all in there. And I believe, was it Mike Pettin or was it his position coach? I think it was his position coach. Was it Mike Smith? That was a big advocate of this, like, don't just look at sack numbers, look at pressures. All right? They focus more on our guys getting pressures, winning the pressure rate. And not last year, but the year before, Rashawn Gary was up there in pressure rate, didn't really necessarily have all the sack numbers, but he had the pressure rate. So it was this debate or this banter amongst a lot of, like, Packers fans, like, okay, Rashawn Gary ain't doing anything because he doesn't have a lot of sacks. Well, pressure rate, he's there, but you still got to finish the job and get the sacks. It goes back and forth. It's a cycle. It's a circle of a debate. And Stewart is this. He's got talent. He's got a lot of athleticism to it. He's a physical freak. But then you get, where's the production? That's going to be the debate about him. And I'm sure that's the debate that scouts, GMs, their front office are having with this guy, with this player, is like, okay, he's got all these traits. He's a fantastic athlete, but should we be concerned about the lack of production? Or is that overhyped? Is that overblown? Kind of like Daniel Jeremiah just said there. Now, if you look at Goody's history and the Packers' history in drafting, I don't think his lack of production is something that is going to be a big no-no for the Packers. I mean, you look at the guys that they have drafted over the years. Clay Matthews, Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness. They're prime examples of this. Prime examples of taking a player that may not have had the most production in college, but they view him in high regard. They like their athleticism. They like what else they bring to the table. Now, some of those names I just mentioned, though, too, are probably what is going to deter some Packers fans from potentially liking the pick. Maybe they want more proven production from that player. So, this does seem like a typical Packer pick if he happens to be there and the Packers select him. But I guarantee you, when it comes out, let's say that's the Packers pick on Thursday, you're going to hear 4.5 sacks in his career, in his collegiate career. And you're going to hear, really? We drafted a guy in 3 years, had 4.5 sacks? Lucas Van Ness 2.0. It's going to happen. You know it's going to happen. Let's take a look at another. Now, so Shemar's mostly defensive end in a 4-3. Edge rusher, right? Let's take a look at a couple of defensive tackles now. So I want to start off with Walter Nolen, defensive tackle from Mississippi. Here's what Daniel Jeremiah had to say. Nolen is a twitchy defensive tackle who fits best in a penetrating style of defense. Ole Miss slanted him quite often in its defensive scheme, and he created some early wins versus the run and pass. As a pass rusher, he can really get off the ball with urgency and roll his hips to jolt blockers. He flashes a violent hump move and can redirect with ease. He needs to improve his vision and awareness, though. He wins a lot of battles, but fails to win the war because of his inability to locate the ball. Against the run, he can generate negative plays for the offense by shooting the gaps, but he gets caught and washed at times. Overall, Nolen is an extremely talented and disruptive, but he hasn't come close to reaching his potential. If he lands with the right scheme and coach, he could emerge as one of the better players in this draft process. That's an interesting scouting report. Now, last year, first-team AP All-American, first-team All-SEC, tied for the team lead with 14 tackles for loss, finalist for the Outland Trophy, the nation's top offensive lineman or defensive lineman. Started all 13 games, finished with 6.5 sacks, 48 tackles, 3 pass breakups. You look at, again, okay, he's incredibly talented, but still needs a little bit more molding. And that you're going to get that a lot with, I mean, you can make that case with a lot of these new rookies coming in. Everybody, there's not the prospect that's going to have 100% positive attributes, positive scouting reports where nobody's going to have anything negative to say. So when you watch some of his clips, though, I was watching some more of them last night, getting ready for this. This is a guy, that he wins a lot of one-on-ones, but I was getting some of the flashbacks from last year of Kenny Clark, where Kenny Clark was winning some one-on-ones. But going back to like when Jeremiah said locating the ball, it reminded me a lot of times of some of the plays from Kenny Clark where he's in the backfield, but the ball carrier is running by, or the play is going the other way. That's kind of the vision that I got, was those flashbacks from Kenny Clark last year, because there were times that Kenny Clark, just dominated the guy from across from him. He's in the backfield, but It might have been too quick or, just a little too explosive. So he's got this playmaking ability, and he's a really good interior pass rusher, and he can get in that backfield. But he's got to be a little bit more aware, especially is it at times maybe just a little too aggressive. But he's definitely got the potential to be a really good defensive lineman. I think if Green Bay drafts him, they have to be able to trust. You got a new defensive line coach coming in here. Do you trust that defensive line coach to get the most out of him? Does he fit the scheme that you can get the most out of him? This is a player that you want to put in a position to be able to have success, to be able to affect games, to be able to dominate. All the talent in the world. And he does have production, right? 6.5 sacks last year. 4 the year prior with Texas A&M. But might need a little bit more molding. And then you got Darius Alexander, defensive tackle from Toledo. Taking a look at him here. Let's start off with looking at his at Daniel Jeremiah's write-up. Brain fart there. Alexander has excellent size, length, and athleticism for his position. Primarily aligned inside at defensive tackle during his time at Toledo, but he did take some reps on the edge in the games that he studied. As a pass rusher, he flashes an explosive shake bull with the quickness to redirect and cross the face of blockers. He can get a little too high at times, which neutralizes his ability to create a pocket rush. He showed improvement and more polish at the Senior Bowl. Against the run, he uses his length to stack and control blockers. He plays with balance, and he's adept at throwing his hip at the double team to hold his ground. He's an older prospect as a 6th-year senior, but I believe he will be a day one impact player on all 3 downs. A little bit older, maybe a little bit more polished, and maybe a little bit more ready. 2019, he was redshirted. 2024, his last year, second team All-MAC, started 12 games, 3.5 sacks, 7.5 tackles for loss. You look at his physical traits, 6'4", 305 pounds. So brings the physical tools to this thing that you look for from an interior defensive lineman. And I think the intriguing part is, yes, he's a little bit older, but could you insert him day one and play day one? Daniel Jeremiah sure thinks so. So while we've seen Green Bay kind of go with the younger route on some of their players, Kenny Clark being the prime example of that, I think a lot of Packers fans, if you polled them, said, well, we want a guy that's going to be an impact player right away, day one. You're potentially going to get that with Alexander. That's somebody that you can throw in there, maybe a little bit more mature, a little bit more experienced, that he can go in there and be a player right away. And a 3-down player on top of that. Is he he's not, the fastest guy out there. He's got average first step quickness to some of the reports I was reading the other day. Doesn't get to point A to point B quickly. So he's not the physical, athletic specimen as a Shemar Stewart or even maybe Walter. But if you just want a solid football player, again, we talked about it again a couple days ago with some of these prospects. If you just want a solid football player, a guy who's been playing ball for a little bit here, he's a little bit older, right? He's redshirted in 2019 for crying out loud. That was pre-COVID year, okay? He's been around the college game for a little bit, but maybe that means he's more suited, ready to be put in a position to play right away day one. And I think, again, you ask a lot of Packers fans, they want a guy that's going to play day one. Be ready day one. But the knock is going to be, for some teams, they're going to look at his age. Like, yeah, he's a little bit older, though. We want a younger guy that maybe we can keep around for 10 years, 12 years. But if you want a guy that's going to help you out right away, this might be the player. So looking at these three, they all bring something different to the table. Obviously, Shemar's more of an edge rusher. Athletic freak. But is there concern about production? Looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. You're probably going to hear that phrase a lot when it comes to Shemar. Then you got Walter Nolen. Production's there. Does a lot of good stuff. But is he better suited? There's some untapped potential for him, and maybe he's got to be that guy that's placed in the right scheme, placed with the right defensive line coach to get the most out of him, to put him in a position to succeed. And then Darius, older, but maybe more ready to play, but not as athletic or not as as big of a specimen as the other two. Regardless, I could see all three being potential Packer selections because they all bring something different to the table, and they all bring something that I think the Packers are looking for that would intrigue them, and they could instantly improve this defense.